Hello everyone. Welcome to Daily News Pulse for 27th May 2026, in which we are going to discuss the Hindu newspaper. So the first news today came up on page number 1, that is India-US draw up deal on rare earth elements. So the first thing here we are talking about is on the sidelines of 11th Quad Foreign Ministers meeting. India and United States on Tuesday firm up an important framework for cooperation in ensuring steady supplies of critical minerals. So first thing, when we talk about these critical minerals, what are these critical minerals? The critical minerals or strategic minerals which are there now, these critical minerals, first of all, minerals which are economically important, the minerals which are difficult to substitute, the minerals which are geopolitically sensitive, and the minerals which are essential for strategic sectors. So strategic sectors, take for example, defense is there. So strategic sector. So under this, if you take examples may include, let's say, for example, lithium, cobalt, nickel. Now these are what are used in battery technologies, EVs. Similarly, you have the rare earth elements. Rare earth elements are used in electronic sector, defense systems, and all of these now constitute the critical minerals. So what's whole of the idea of critical minerals is basically where critical minerals, when we see the refining and processing of critical minerals, China has an upper hand in that. Okay, almost with respect to different minerals, say for example, the rare earth elements, the processing refining capability is 90% of the global capacity is controlled by China. Similarly, for other minerals, it is in the range of 70%, 80%, 90% as such. But now China has been imposing restrictions on the exports, okay, and is using it as a geopolitical tool. So that is where growing concerns over China's export controls of rare earth minerals and strategic metals. So over here, the framework which is there now, this framework is called as securing of supply in the mining and processing of critical minerals and rare earth. So that is where the overall purpose is. We see what it seeks to is strengthen resilient and diversified supply chain, first thing, where whole of the world should not be dependent on only one source, which is China. Okay, we need diversification so as to secure the supply chain, as well as promoting collaboration in financing and effective management of critical minerals. That is the framework all about, which is called as securing of supply in the mining and processing of critical minerals and rare earths. So in this case, over here, if we see a separate framework on critical minerals was also signed amongst the 4 Quad nations. So what we are looking at today has been the Quad Summit, Foreign Minister level Quad Summit, which happened in India only yesterday, that is 26th of May, Tuesday. And so the outcomes of these we are looking at. So Quad members amongst them have signed a separate minerals on critical minerals. So Quad framework on critical minerals. Now Quad, as we have discussed last time, okay, is a grouping of Australia, India, Japan, and USA. So what this framework is about is mobilizing around 20 billion in government and private sector support to establish stable supply chain for critical minerals. And what is it? In the backdrop that China imposed export controls on rare earth elements in 2025, after US's imposition of tariff on large number of partner countries. So over here, one, that is the cooperation framework between India and US has been signed separately, and amongst Quad nations, a framework on critical minerals have been signed separate. A continuation of this article read that India-US deal was built upon continued engagement between the two countries and all, including India becoming signatory to the US-led Pax Silica initiative. So overall, now when we talk about the initiatives, basically, the initiatives with respect to critical minerals, the first one we are talking about is Mineral Security Partnership. Now, Mineral Security Partnership 2022, this was led by USA. India is a signatory to that. And if we again talk about the member countries include basically all Quad countries. So all the 4 Quad countries, okay, along with that, take for example, Canada, okay, France, Germany, EU, all of these are members of this Mineral Security Partnership. And this Mineral Security Partnership is basically to secure the same thing, supply chain of critical minerals to reduce the dependence on China. So that is the first framework that we already have. Second framework, similarly, is India having bilateral partnership with Australia, which is called as India-Australia Critical Minerals Investment Partnership. So this is what we have as a bilateral partnership agreement with Australia. And then comes what has been referred to here, which is Pax Silica. Now, Pax here would mean rule-based, and Silica is majorly over here related to silicon, that is the semiconductors. So this again was a US-led initiative in 2025, very recent one. And over here again, this is primarily related to, so over here, Pax Silica. This is primarily now related to the securing of supply. So securing supply chain for with respect to what? Let's say with respect to semiconductors fabrication, manufacturing of semiconductors. Okay, along with that, AI infrastructure. The AI infrastructure. Similarly, the third one has been securing the supply of critical minerals, its processing. Then along with that, advanced manufacturing. Advanced manufacturing over here, okay, take for example, may include robotics, electronics. Then along with that, energy system. Energy system for powering AI systems. And likewise, maintaining data infrastructure and other logistics related to overall semiconductor sector. So that is what was a US-led initiative in 2025, and India became partner of that. Again, over here, if you see Quad members, all the Quad members are partners in this Pax Silica, along with other countries as well. It's not just limited to Quad countries. Okay, say for example, South Korea is a partner, UK is a partner, Singapore is a partner, and so on and so forth. Israel is a partner. So if we talk about existing agreements and arrangements with respect to the critical minerals, Mineral Security Partnership, India-Australia Critical Mineral Investment Partnership, PAC Silica, and now the new one. Okay, new ones now will include India, US, and Quad framework. So these are on the top of what already are existing. So this is the scenario of the critical minerals in different initiatives of which India is a part. So this was the first news that was covered. Now after this, the second news was again related to the outcome of Quad only, which was related to the maritime plans. So now with respect to maritime plans, if we see what are the things that have been done is the Quad group pledged to enhance cooperation in maritime and energy domains. So maritime and energy. First thing now when you say that is launched initiatives on energy security as well as maritime surveillance. What are these? First, maritime security when we talk about. Under for maritime security, two things have been done. Okay, the first one, which is Indo-Pacific Maritime Surveillance Collaboration, in which the whole idea is all the four countries, Quad countries, which are there. Okay, their existing maritime surveillance capabilities, which would be there, that would be used to generate the data, and that information would be shared amongst all the four countries. So that is where Indo-Pacific Maritime Surveillance Collaboration Initiative, which is going to leverage each of our countries' maritime surveillance capabilities in the Indo-Pacific to enhance information sharing. That's the first part of maritime security. Going beyond that, the second one is expansion of the Indo-Pacific Maritime Domain Awareness Initiative. Now, maritime domain awareness initiative is basically real-time tracking of the commercial traffic in the Indo-Pacific region, and accordingly, again, sharing the data and all. So these would be two things which would come under maritime security. First, if you see surveillance collaboration, and second, domain awareness initiative. Then, apart from that, the continuation of this news, if we see over here, the grouping also announced the Quad initiative on Indo-Pacific energy security. Of Indo-Pacific energy security, this has been taken up in the backdrop of what is going on in the present time. Take, for instance, how Strait of Hormuz has been blocked, and with this, the energy security of the world has been compromised. So that is what it is related to. That is Indo-Pacific energy security to boost regional energy resilience and emergency responses exercise. Okay, which is related to safe and unimpeded maritime commerce. So this is basically in the backdrop of what is going on right now in Strait of Hormuz. So overall now, with respect to Quad Summit, now what we have, one major outcome has been related to critical minerals, in which India has signed one critical mineral agreement with US as a bilateral one, and another at the grouping level, Quad level, partnership on critical minerals. Second one has been taken up with respect to the maritime sector, where again maritime sector, maritime security as well as energy security. Now, the next news which was covered, okay, was on page number 10 related to Mekedatu project. So Supreme Court rejects review plea by Tamil Nadu on Mekedatu project. So Mekedatu project, first of all, Mekedatu, what is this? So Mekedatu literally means goats leap. based on a legend story over here. But from geographical point of view, if you see, this is nothing but a narrow gorge, as you can see over here in the picture also. So this is a narrow gorge on Kaveri in Karnataka, located in Karnataka, and this is at Karnataka, Tamil Nadu border, right there at the border, because just after this, Kaveri enters Tamil Nadu. Now, what Karnataka government has done is Karnataka government has announced a project on this, which would be a multi-purpose reservoir project, that is Mekedatu project. Now, this project which would be there, this project technically is going to be used for drinking water requirements, especially of Bangalore city. Okay, along with that, hydropower generation. So hydropower generation, and in addition to that, okay, it would be used as a balancing reservoir. So balancing reservoir as in, it would be used to regulate the release of waters, Kaveri waters to Tamil Nadu, as well as in case of excessive rainfall will be used to store the water as well. So project where drinking water, hydropower generation, as well as used as balancing reservoir. That's one thing. So this is the project announced by Karnataka government. Now Tamil Nadu government has opposed this project right there from the beginning itself, uh, claiming that Karnataka is going to store the water and is not going to release the allocated waters to Tamil Nadu. But now Supreme Court has said that no, any opposition as of now, okay, we are not going to withhold it. Okay. And we should rather wait for the detailed project report which is there on the reservoir to be studied by Kaveri Water Management Authority and Kaveri Water Regulation Committee. So Kaveri Water Management Authority and Kaveri Water Regulation Committee. Now about this, if we see, in 2018, so 2018, in 2018, Kaveri Water Disputes Tribunal gave its final award in which it allocated waters to Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, as well as the basin states, which are Kerala and Puducherry. Now, to implement the award of the tribunal, a statutory body, which was Kaveri Water Management Authority. Kaveri Water Management Authority, which is a statutory body, was constituted, and this was constituted by Government of India. So if I see, Government of India constituted this Kaveri Water Management Authority under Article 262 of the Constitution. What does the article read? The article reads, Parliament may provide for adjudication of interstate river water disputes. And so, under this article, Government of India constituted Kaveri Water Management Authority. So now, the purpose of this body is to implement the award given by Kaveri Water Disputes Tribunal. So Kaveri Water Disputes Tribunal 2018, and from there in 2018 only this authority was created. That's first thing. Now with respect to the second body you see over here, that is Kaveri Water Regulation Commission. So the Kaveri Water Regulation Committee, which is there. Now, this Kaveri Water Regulation Committee, this is nothing but a technical and regulatory body. Technical and regulatory body. Okay, and this is under Kaveri Water Management Authority itself. So it's like this committee carries out day-to-day affairs, including, say, for example, continuously monitoring the reservoir levels, checking water releases, doing field inspections and data collections, and all of this, it reports back to Kaveri Water Management Authority. And as such, in this body, you have different representatives. Representatives are from their Tamil Nadu, Karnataka representatives are there, Kerala representatives are there, Puducherry representatives are there. Okay. In addition to that, Central Water Commission, Indian Meteorological Department, as well as Ministry of Jal Shakti. All of their representatives are in this regulatory committee, which reports back to Kaveri Water Management Authority. So these are different aspects, technical aspects related to this particular news. So over here, if you see, the Supreme Court dismissed a petition filed by Tamil Nadu to review November 2025 decision that termed the state's challenge to Karnataka balancing and drinking water project as premature. The review petition was dismissed by Supreme Court. So citing it as premature because it's still CWMA and CWRC is studying the detailed project report. So over here, if you see, Central Water Commission had already made it clear that any approval of DPR would be given only after approvals from CWMA and CWRC, who are in the process of studying it. Then it says the apex court had said that Karnataka anyway would be bound to release Kaveri water allocated to Lower Riparian, Tamil Nadu, and Union Territory of Puducherry. This is based on the tribunal award. So that's about this news, which was related to Mekedatu project. After this, the next one, which came in editorial, which was India's energy strategy needs price correction. Now, this editorial, if we check the major assertions in this editorial, it talks about what has been happening in the state of Hormuz and how Indian government has been responding to those challenges. So responding to those challenges, now what we see, the first thing, the context, laying out the context. So laying out the context, okay, what we see is the Strait of Hormuz is no longer just a geopolitical flashpoint. It has become the fault line of the global energy economy. Now, how is that? So what we are reading is, most importantly, energy security is now inseparable from geopolitics. And that is what is pretty much evident from the ongoing crisis. The ongoing crisis is a geopolitical crisis, but what it has resulted into is compromising the energy security of different countries. Now, the impact of the conflict has been visible in global crude markets. Of course, the prices of crude has increased throughout. Then going beyond that, so this is basically initially about the freight costs, marine insurance premiums that have increased due to the risk associated. And so the crude oil prices have increased, absolutely. But along with that, global gas markets also remain under pressure. Global gas markets remaining under pressure. Okay, why is it so? Because we have seen now the attacks on Qatar, and there have been impacts on Qatar's natural gas production capability. So over here, if you see, following disruptions linked to the shutdown of key liquefied natural gas export infrastructure in Qatar. So that's one thing. So under this, what I see is Qatar overall, when we talk about LNG, So over here, LNG exporters, when we see LNG exporters, may USA is the largest exporter right now. Okay, followed by Qatar, followed by Australia, followed by Russia. So that's the order. From India perspective, if you see, India imports LNG from where? So India imports LNG, okay, from Qatar. Qatar is the largest supplier of LNG to India, followed by USA, followed by Australia. So definitely, okay, when the export infrastructure has been affected in Qatar, it has an impact on India. But the article is saying, despite this turbulence, the crisis has not hit Indian consumers as ferociously. Okay, why? If we compare it very clearly, petrol and diesel prices at Indian fuel pumps have remained relatively stable, hovering around 95. And in this article, now the author has compared it with other countries. This advanced economies में 25% hike has been on an average. And if you see the equivalent prices, Germany and UK, 220 rupees, 204 rupees per liter. Okay, Hong Kong, 291 rupees per liter. Whereas in India, it is hovering around 95 or 100. So that's where the argument is, yes, due to these shocks in the global supplies, the effects have been on India, but the impact of on the imports have not translated directly into burden on consumers commensurately. The burden is there. The prices have increased, but have not increased commensurately, even when we compare it with the other countries, even the developed countries. So in this case, intervention. What are the interventions from the government side has been? So interventions may, the important idea is country expanded its sourcing basket beyond Gulf. How? By strengthening ties with suppliers in Russia, USA, West Africa, and in the Atlantic Basin. So diversification is the first. Diversification, which India was already in the process of doing. That's one thing. Secondly, taking advantage of exit of UAE from OPEC. So UAE recently decided to exit from OPEC because UAE did not wanted regulations of OPEC in terms of how much it should be producing and all. And taking benefit of that, India signed an agreement with UAE now. Agreement on what? To store crude oil in India's strategic petroleum reserves. So that was a intelligent move on part of India, taking benefit of this fact that UAE exit from OPEC organization. Then next, that is refineries were directed to maximize LPG production to meet rising domestic demand. Now over here has been said, talked about Ujjwala scheme. Now Ujjwala scheme is related to supply of cooking gas, and in the last 10 years, okay, there has been tremendous increase in the household LPG pipeline supplies, where it stands at 33 crore in the present time. But obviously, this would increase the demand of LPG in India. So that is where refineries were directed to maximize LPG production to meet the demand. Similarly, gas allocation priority was given to households, public transport, and fertilizer plants. Okay, this gas allocation, we are basically talking about the natural gas. So natural gas, where natural gas would be used in fertilizer plants, natural gas would be used in household supplies also as a cooking gas, which is the P in the PNG form. So this is where the priorities were given over here. Then likewise, domestic LPG production increased by nearly 50%. Plus 25 fertilizer plants continued receiving 70% of their gas requirement. So with respect to all this, if you see, what we have said is India is importing LNG. So when importing natural gas imports, if you see, it is done in the form of LNG, that is liquefied natural gas. So where the natural gas is cooled up to a temperatures of almost minus 162 degrees Celsius. So it becomes liquid and easier to transport. So at this temperature, it is transported. And now when India receives this LNG, what India is involved in is regasification. So it is again heated and converted into gaseous form in which it needs to be used and then supplied through pipelines. That's all of the idea. Now, this natural gas, we see very important sectors which right now are using in India are these sectors itself. Okay, which you are saying as the households. Households, it is supplied in the form of pressurized natural gas, PNG. Public transport network in which compressed natural gas and fertilizer plant when it is supplied simply as natural gas. So natural gas becomes a feedstock for fertilizer plants. So that's one thing. So it is saying that government has taken good number of steps, and that's the reason why the pricing has not been, the increase in global prices has not been passed on to the end consumers in India. So that is where it is saying these measures have brought the country valuable time, but also come at a steep cost. Now, what is this cost we are talking about? The cost is where India's state-run OMCs, oil marketing companies, are operating under enormous financial stress, selling fuel below market-linked costs. So over here, now you can see the extent of the losses. Daily losses near 700 crores to 800 crores, peak volatility time. So that is where the problem lies. Now, if you see very clearly, till now, these OMCs have been able to, under the instruction from government, definitely, they have been able to absorb the shock. But not for very long, because that cannot be a sustainable solution. And that is what has been said. This strategy may be politically prudent in short term, but is economically difficult to sustain over a prolonged period. Why? Because energy subsidies are going to strain public finance, correct? Impacting the balance sheets of oil companies, and so on. So overall, when we see why this challenge right now is mainly because majority of the sectors which are there in India, they are still heavily dependent on fossil fuels. And we are importing all these fossil fuels. So that is one specific problem right now if we can identify. So what the author suggests when we are saying, author is suggesting or taking clue first of all from what India has been done in the past decade, that is India has managed inflation relatively effectively over past decade. Correct. Okay. And when this is the case, then what we see is because the inflation has they have been able to deal with till now. Now the author suggests that a gradual pass through of global energy cost should be undertaken. Okay, where at the end of the day, the impact has to be passed on to end consumer. The OMCs cannot keep absorbing the losses, okay, which is absolutely not sustainable in the longer run. Now, the only thing that author is saying is the increase which is there, okay, which is should not be incremental and in parts. Rather, it is saying that frequent revision creates uncertainty for consumers trying to manage households. And so the author suggests a one-time price hike of at least 13% on petroleum products. So although we may or may not agree with the suggestions of author, that is all the burden or a large part of the burden should be passed on to the consumer, but still the analysis is perfectly fitting. And again, the takeaway is that when there is this much of disruption in the West Asia, and which means disruption in the global supply chain, what government has been doing is government has been trying to manage these at their own levels by increasing the production levels, by diversifying its sources, and by seizing the opportunities, as we have seen in the case of the agreement with UAE. And on the top of that, the government has been absorbing the losses, although it is majorly done by the OMCs, that is the oil marketing companies. But eventually, this is not going to be sustainable in the longer run. And so the cost pressure has to be passed on to the end consumer. That is overall takeaway from this editorial. So these were the most important news from today's The Hindu newspaper, and so today's daily news pulse. Thank you very much, everyone.